Good evening. I want to start tonight by reading you a verse out of Proverbs chapter 6. Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. We're going to find tonight, we're going to look at the topic of laziness and how Scripture deals with this, and Proverbs has a lot to say on this topic. And we're eventually going to get around to that, to go to the ant, to consider her ways and gain wisdom from this. So stay with us tonight as we look in Proverbs on the topic of laziness. All right, we are in Proverbs, and we have been walking through a lot of destructive behaviors, things that will set our life on a course of ruin, and that God's going to warn us about. And all through Proverbs, practical wisdom. Remember, Proverbs is saying, if you do this today, here's the ripple effect that's going to go out. Here's how it's going to affect you. Here's how it's going to affect others. Here's how it's going to affect your relationship to God. And all these things. So whether it's anger or pride, whether it's adultery, whether it is greed, whether it is the words that we use, wisdom has much to say in all of these. Because if we're not careful, those things can take us to a place that we don't want to go. But sometimes it's the easy path will lead us to those places. And so we want to bring everything under control for the glory of God. We want to present ourselves a living sacrifice. And so we're going to look tonight really at a topic that it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not a Christian, one that we always have to kind of fight and overcome. And this is our inner nature and our tendency to become lazy. Now, maybe you are that lazy person. Maybe right now you think of someone who is lazy and you're thinking, oh, they got to hear this lesson. It's easy to be lazy, isn't it? Sit back, to take it easy. You're not trying to be evil. We might even say, well, I deserve a little bit of time. And hey, I do a lot more than, and we always make reasons why we can take a day off. Be a little more relaxed now. Don't be in such a hurry. You don't have to work. Just stop and relax. And there is a level of we need to be able to stop. To be still and know that He is God. To be refreshed, to come away. Christ did that. He came away to be refreshed in times of prayer and fellowship. And so it's good to relax, but what we find with all things is that Satan takes something that God intended for good and he will take it farther. So instead of just relaxing to rest and be refreshed, even God on the seventh day, He rested, didn't He? What Satan wants to do is make that go into the 8th day and the 9th day and the 10th day. Just rest, relax. And what we find is that it's going to bring ruin. And so what we're going to do tonight, we're going to walk through some Proverbs, and we are going to look at the lazy man and kind of build a profile of how Proverbs describes this person. If we were going to do a character sketch of the lazy man, what would Proverbs give us? So we're going to do this. We're going to walk through and we're going to read a couple verses on the side, and then we're going to get a profile of what this lazy man looks like. So Proverbs 10, verse 4. He who has a slack hand becomes poor, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. So the slack hand, the person that doesn't work, that just kind of, I don't feel like it today. What do we find out about this person, this lazy man? The first thing you find out, that he is poor. A slack hand becomes poor. If you do not work hard at something, you will be poor. Now, I think there's different levels of intelligence. Some of us are naturally gifted and smart in some areas, and we all have our areas. But no matter how gifted you are, no matter how talented you are, that just kind of opens the door. But what really gets you through that door and really gets to a good place to really cultivate and use that gift, to make a career, to make a living, it really has to come down to being diligent, to working hard. And if you don't, I don't care how smart you are. Eventually someone will become smarter. I've been told, if you're talented and if you're naturally gifted, that gives you a leg up, but your competition, they're coming. They're going to be working hard and striving, and if you don't keep pushing yourself, you're going to end up poor. They're going to pass you by. And so a lazy man is a poor man. Proverbs 10, verse 5. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who sleeps in harvest is a son who causes shame. There is a time for everything. And when it comes time to harvest, if you're a farmer, that's a busy time, isn't it? You have to be out there, you're collecting the crops. It's exciting, you're reaping what was sown and all of these things. But a son who is lazy, what's the description of this? What is the profile? Well, we find he brings shame. So if you have a child and they're a lazy person, that's shameful. So a lazy man, he is poor, he is shameful. Proverbs 10:26. It's an interesting one. As vinegar to the teeth and smoke to the eyes, so is a lazy man to those who send him. If you're an employer, if you're the boss of your store or whatever it might be, if you have a lazy person, it's terrible, isn't it? You tell them to go do something, and what do you have to do? You have to follow up, and it's not done. And you have to go get them and say, hey, why didn't you do this? And you're constantly on top of them, having to look over their shoulder. Now do this, now do that, now do this. And so the person who sends them, who trusts and has a lazy person underneath them, is like vinegar to the teeth. I've never tried it, but it's supposed to be pretty nasty. That taste, it's repulsive. Smoke in the eyes, it just stings. And so we find the lazy man is repulsive. People don't want to work with a lazy man. Maybe you've been partnered with someone at a job or a project and they aren't pulling their weight. Next time, you don't want to be around that person. They are lazy. They're in your mind, they're worthless. Why do we even have that person here? So a lazy man is poor, he is shameful, he is repulsive. Proverbs 12:24 says, the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy man will be put to forced labor. That's an interesting one. If you are diligent, if you are working hard, applying yourself, doing the best, you know what? Your future is bright. You will rule. You might, whatever that might be, whatever your limits are, if that's going to be a manager, if that's going to be, you're going to own the store, or you're going to be the boss, or whatever it is, if you are diligent, you work hard, you will not stay at the bottom. The lazy people will stay at the bottom. It says the lazy man will be put to forced labor. There's nothing wrong with working at a fast food place, especially when you're starting off, that's no problem. But you can say this person is going to be stuck flipping burgers their entire life. And if they're never get over their laziness, that they can't. Now, if you choose to do that, it's great. There's nothing wrong with that. Honest, hard work is good. But if you are lazy, the forced labor, the lowest rung of someone being in charge of you and someone having to constantly push you, that's all you have. And so what you find a lazy man, he has a bleak future. If you work hard, eventually you're going to rule whatever it might be. But if you're lazy, forced labor is the best that's in store for you. And so this is difficult. A lazy man is poor, shameful, he's repulsive, he has a bleak future. Something else a lazy man does, Proverbs 12. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is man's precious possession. What's this talking about? Well, the lazy man finally got up, he got up off the couch and he went out and he went hunting and he shot his game, but he doesn't finish the job. Here you are, you have shot a couple deer or whatever it might be over there, gazelle, and now all you have to do is roast it and then pack it away and you are done. So the lazy man does? He gets halfway through. He starts and doesn't finish, or he says, you know what? I got time. I'll get to that later. I went out, I did the work, I killed the deer, it's sitting there. Now I'm just going to go in and back to my couch and read the newspaper. You see, what we find is that a lazy man is a procrastinator. He puts off what should be done right now. He says, I'll do it later, I got time. You might know people like this. Always pushing off. Someone once said, don't leave off to tomorrow what can be done today. Do you always look at that? Do you get done, it's like, all right, what's the next thing? Or do you just say, I can do it tomorrow, and it's not a big deal. It's a procrastinator. There's other verses about this. Proverbs 15:19. The way of a lazy man is like a hedge of thorns, but the way of the upright is a highway. What is it talking about? The way of a lazy man. Well, if you have ever walked through the woods and you've come up to a patch of thorns, I kind of get this picture in my mind. And you start walking, try to walk through them, and suddenly you see the thorns. What do? You stop and you pull back and you try a different way and there's more thorns and you pull back and you kind of stop and start and you really don't go anywhere. And eventually you have to kind of give up. That is kind of the way of the lazy man. There's this starting and stopping, there's never following through. The upright person, he has a highway, he's going places. He has a clear way, he's making progress, and maybe it's uphill, maybe it's hard, but he's moving forward towards a goal. The lazy man, it's a hedge of thorns. Both to himself, this stopping and starting and trying to work with him, it's not a good thing. Proverbs 20, the sluggard does not plow in the autumn. He will seek at harvest and have nothing. Again, he procrastinates. I got time. And in the end, eventually comes back to bite him. And what is the end? Well, kind of referencing he's poor again, right? He will have to beg. He will have nothing. You procrastinate, you put off. That's a lazy person. It's another form of laziness. So he is poor. He is shameful. He's repulsive. He has a bleak future. He procrastinates. Some of you parents are going to go get your kids right now and say, you're going to watch this one, right? I don't want you to be these things. There's another one. The lazy man, Proverbs 26, says, there is a lion in the road, a fierce lion in the streets. This is a bit odd. Why would a lazy person say this? There's no lion in the streets. If he was, he would be a hero for announcing and warning. But the lazy person says there's a lion out there and it's in the streets and don't go out. You know what he's doing? He's making excuses for why. Hey, you need to get up and go. Oh, you know what's out there? There's a lion out there. I can't go out there. Best just to stay on my couch. Stay in my comfortable little zone, and we're just going to take it easy. And maybe tomorrow things will clear up. They always make excuses of why they can't do right now. And some people are like this. And they are lazy, they make excuses, they procrastinate, and you know what? They're repulsive and their future is bleak. Proverbs 26:14. As a door turns on its hinges, so does the lazy man on his bed. It's kind of a picture, right? Think of a door swinging and opening and closing. I think that's like a lazy person. That's all he does. He's secured to his bed and he's just tossing back and forth. And that's what a lazy person's like. What do you find a lazy man? He sleeps too much. Proverbs 20 says the same. Love not sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes and you will have plenty of bread. Be diligent. Get up and work. If you get up before 9 o'clock, I promise you it's not going to kill you. The first week might be a bit rough, but you get up and you work and you're diligent at whatever God has given you to do. One more. Proverbs 26. The lazy man is wiser in his own eyes than 7 men who can answer sensibly. Now, this isn't the foolish man. You would think the foolish man, right? The foolish man is wiser in his own eyes, and the fool is wise in his eyes. But this is the lazy man. Isn't this something? You find the lazy man, he is self-deceived. You look at him and you might say, you're a bum. You're going nowhere in life, and you're 35 years old, still living in your parents' basement. You know what? And in his eyes, he's the best person. He's the wisest person. He has it made, and he thinks, and really if you look at his whole life, he's poor, shameful, repulsive, his future isn't looking good. He's a procrastinator, he makes up excuses, he sleeps too much, and he is self-deceived. I will probably preach this to my kids as they get older. But here's the question. Do you want better than this? And I hope you do. And even the unbelievers, they have to come to a place of, hey, I don't want to be those things. But do we want better this as Christians? Or do we say, you know what, I'm all right with the way I am? What do we do? How do we avoid this type of life? Well, as we read at the very beginning, Proverbs 6 is so good. It says, go to the ant, O sluggard. Observe her ways and be wise, which having no chief, officer, or ruler, prepares her food in the summer and gathers her provision in the harvest. Go to the ant. Go look at this tiny little ant and see the way this ant lives. Now, if you are able to be in person, we have a video that we would watch on this. I can't really do it because of, Facebook would probably pull our video off pretty quick. But this whole video, you should go on to YouTube and watch this. And the whole video is about an ant colony. And it's really cool. They take a concrete truck and they hook up the hose into the opening, and then they kill all the ants, which is terrible. They pour the concrete, the wet concrete, down into, and they let it set up. And they go through, kind of like with dinosaur bones and fossils, they go through and they excavate the whole area. And they dig up and they show, and underneath the ground, there's just a little hole at the surface. Underneath the ground, been thousands, maybe millions of ants have been working. And you find an area about 40 by 40 feet that they have made this entire city. And they have tunnels, and they have chutes, and they have garbage disposals in place for food and air ventilation. And you know what's amazing? The ants work together, and they just know what to do. And they work hard. They carry, 3-4 times their own weights. They drag it up farther. I think for us it says about 1 kilometer in distance. And they drop it off, and they go back over and over and over. Tons of dirt, all for the purpose of making the city to live in. And if you look at this verse, go to the ants. Look at how diligent, look at how hardworking they are. And I want to just pull out 3 things here. And this would we could call the profile of the diligent. So we saw the lazy man. He's repulsive, a bleak future. He makes excuses. He procrastinates. Here's the ant. Go to the ants, O sluggard. Observe her ways and be wise. Look at what she does. Having no chief officer or ruler, prepares her food in the summer and gathers her provision in the harvest. And we could go on and on about what diligence looks like and why it's important and how it displays itself. But I want to keep us just to this passage right here. And let me pull out 3 things. If you are going to be diligent, if you want to take the first steps of becoming a less lazy person and becoming more diligent for the glory of God, here are 3 things. The first thing, a diligent person doesn't wait to be told. They don't have a chief. They don't have an officer. They don't have a ruler who's sitting there and cracking the whip. All right, hey, we got to get these tunnels. We got to do you know what? They don't wait to be told. Some of us, and I think it's very common, I'm going to throw myself in there, you have a to-do list at home that's been there for, maybe a year or 2 years. When you have time, do you have to wait for someone? Do you have to wait for the wife to say, hey, when are you finally going to get? Do you have to wait for someone to walk in and say, this doesn't look very good before you, okay, I guess I'll do. A diligent person, they don't have to be told and they jump in. In a workplace, you can tell the difference between a person who is eager to work, that you don't have to look over and you turn them loose and they're going to do their job and produce the results they need to, versus a lazy person who you have to stand right there. You almost have to hold their hand. All right, now flip the burger. Now put it on the bun. Nope, the other side of the bun. Now put the cheese on it. Nope, then the lettuce, then the pickle. You have to walk step by step by step by step. And if you leave them alone, you just kind of find them, they just sit there. Blank expression. Just kind of waiting the clock out. Versus a person who is proactive. And if you know a proactive person, it seems they're always going. They're always looking, hey, I have 2 hours. An appointment got canceled. I have 2 hours. What can I do? What's something? And they don't wait to be told. They're not looking for a reason to get out. They're looking to get things done. And that's what ants are. They don't have a slave driver over them, but they're looking and they're not waiting to be told. The second thing a diligent person does, and this is so important in life, they do what is most important. And this is where you need discernment from God, because in your life, if you can know the most important things, and you can say yes to those and no to things that are less important, you will have a great life. Now, I'm not saying health, wealth, and prosperity, maybe, maybe not. But if you find the most important things, which as Christians, what's the most important? Well, God. Storing up treasures in heaven, not just living for this life, but for all people, if you know what is the most important and that's what you pursue, when you say no to the things that would distract and keep you away, you are going to be a great person. And God can do great things through you. You're going to go to great places. Know what the ant does? What is the most important? She prepares her food and she gathers her provisions. Because you know what the ant knows? Winter is coming. And you can't go out there and find nuts and fruits and green leaves. If they don't store up, when winter comes, then comes their destruction. And so they know the best and most important thing. We have to build all this. Why? Well, I need to build this so I can store food, so we can survive through winter, so we can do. And that is why ants, who are so good at doing what's most important and not waiting to be told, there's billions of them all over the world. And ant colonies are ridiculous of the things that they do and get done because they know what's most important. So what's most important in your life? Now, what are your priorities? Number one, it needs to be God. Then it needs to be your family. Then it should be your church. Then it should be your friends. And then it should be yourself kind of last. That's kind of the order it is. And God's overall. So guess what? If my family's not saved, I'm not going to ignore them. I'm going to tell them about God because God is number one. My family and then my church and my friends. I put myself last. The problem is we like to invert this a little bit. And I want to be at the top. And what do I want today? And what do I want to do? Joy is putting Jesus first, others second, and yourself last. Do you know what the very best things are in life? Too many times we have worthless things. I'm guilty of that. You have things that aren't sinful by themselves, but it's just junk food to the soul. It doesn't really build up, and it doesn't drive us to become better and to do better. What are the very best things? So a diligent person doesn't wait to be told. They do what is most important. And finally, they work hard and they work ahead. When are they storing up food? It's not they're waiting for the weather to turn and, hey guys, winter's here. It is time to go to work. We're going to need food or we're going to die. They work ahead, don't they? In the summer, in the harvest, now is the time. I need to be storing up and I need to be preparing for down the road. Some people do well with retirement. They can see and they know what's coming. And right now, I need to deny myself so that when I get old, I'm not going to be this poor, miserly person who has to mooch off of other people to be able to barely survive. Proverbs talks about a wise person stores up not just for himself, but for his children and his children's children, an inheritance. But you have to work hard. You have to work ahead and see what is the very best, not waiting to be told. That's what a diligent person is. And so as you look at your life, you look at your pursuit of Christ, where are we, not being diligent? Where does laziness creep in? My Sunday afternoons, it's 6 hours on the couch because that feels good. Or I just do my own thing and I have a lot of my hobbies and things. I'm not really looking to others. I put myself before my family or my family before God or friends before all of it. Look at your life. Where can you be more diligent? Is there something you need to give up? Is there something you need to be doing? Are we diligent in pursuing? Here's what Colossians 3, let me give you one New Testament verse. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. Whatever you do, work at that with your all. Don't work like you're serving men. Work like you're serving the Lord. You know what? He sees all of it. And he's pleased when we have honest integrity, when we're working hard, when no one can see us, when we're being diligent. What a testimony. It's awful for people to think of Christians as lazy. I hope when you apply for a job, if they find out you're a Christian, I hope the testimony that we've made is, I got a hard worker here. I got someone who's going to, he's going to start when he's supposed to start and work till he's supposed to work, and he's going to, in between, get a lot of stuff done. I want a Christian to work for me. Rather than the testimony of, one of those people. Got a lazy one on my hands, going to have to really crack the whip on this person. It's a testimony to the world. I work hard and I'm diligent, not because man might see me. I don't do it for a paycheck, but I do it heartily as working for the Lord. And people see and they may say, why? This boss is a jerk. Why are you working hard? I'm not working for him. I'm working for the Lord. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for your word. Lord, just how practical to every day it is. Lord, as we look at all these things that creep into our life, whether it's greed or pride or anger or words that would tear down, but even laziness. I pray that we would become like Christ, Lord, who worked hard, who was kind, who prioritize the things that matter the most. Lord, forgive us in the moments that we've been lazy, when we haven't made the most of what you've given. Help us to learn to rest and relax in the amount that you want, in moderation. Lord, when we get up to work, it would be as working for you. Thank you for this night. Help us to remember your words. In your name, amen. Take care.